All right. It should be
Are you
start.
ready?
Yes, I am. It's working right now. All right.
Okay. Welcome. We're a little late, but that's okay.
20 minutes, actually 25 minutes late, so we'll make it up for lost time right here, right now, as you can see, folks. Yeah, it's been a while. I know there was these little moments where you get caught up in some sort of stuff you had to do at the last minute here, and that's what happens with me a lot around here in this place here. So this often explains why I'm often late at times when it comes to doing programs like these. So my apologies for everybody who was waiting online for this episode 8 of our music memories here. And I guess we're covering the scene, the rock and roll scene between the day the music died and the Fab Four's arrival to the states here.
Yeah,
And
and some of the stuff we'll talk about will actually bleed on into that, but that's okay.
yeah, because from what I understand, a lot of critics and a lot of writers have presented it. The scene between those two scenarios wasn't all that pumped up to beat, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was. I can't even think of a word to describe it.
Lame.
But yeah, that's probably a pretty accurate. There were a few good songs here and there, but a lot of times it was just stuff.
Mostly one name acts like Fabian or this person or that person here, but it was. I understand one writer quoted as saying they had no backbone to to themselves or their personality or to their material there.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, because as you know, the day the music died, was on the February 1959. We lost Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper J.P. Richardson, and of course Richie Valens, who is still regarded as one of the first major Latino rock stars out there to make it big with Donna, La Bamba, and of course, one of my personal favorites, Ooh My Head, which, as we know, Led Zeppelin covered under a different title for their record, Physical Graffiti. And we explained the whole scenario, how that was set up. They just did their version, and they, at the time, gave half credit to the songwriting to Mrs. Valens, who was Richie Valens' mother at that time. So I guess they figured at that time, since Richie ain't around, they're probably gonna give some of that money to his mom there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I guess of course,
Despite the fact that a lot of the music was kind of lame,
mm-hmm,
there was some good stuff in there to speak of.
all right,
I mean, of course, a lot of it bled on into the invasion,
the British
but it was
invasion.
American groups. Yeah, but it was American
The
groups.
Four Seasons was one of them. Absolutely,
Yeah,
Frankie Valli and his boys. Which, by the way, I guess Frankie Valli is still performing today. I understand.
probably so. Probably so.
I think he had
I
a.
honestly don't know that.
Did he have a stint with the Sopranos? If I am correct, I remember
I
reading that in a
saw
magazine.
The Sopranos, but I don't remember him in there.
The only one I remember other than Little Steven Van Zandt from the Springsteen's Eastery Band was in there for a couple of times there.
Yeah.
But I think he had some sort of a role in some TV series that someone related to the mafia, if I'm correct. If I'm wrong about this, feel free to correct me. You know,
I honestly don't know that.
I'll probably have to look it up to confirm it. To find out for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. I think we mentioned Dion, but there was Dion who had did A Teenager in Love, Run
Yes.
Around Sue,
Yep.
Don't Pity Me.
Yes.
Uh, Abraham Martin and John, which actually was in the late 60s. In fact,
Yes.
it might have even been in the 70s.
That's right.
And then, of course, we had some people that actually only did one song I know of.
Hmm.
I guess they're technically one hit wonders, which that's going to get its own show later. But I'm going to mention them here anyway. You had the Tokens who did uh, Lion Sleeps Tonight. Paul and Paula did Hey Paula.
Yep. Hmm.
The Shirelles, Soldier Boy.
Yes, right.
Brenda Lee, I'm Sorry.
Oh yeah. I remember hearing about Brandy Lee many years back. She was the one. Wasn't she the one who did? It's no that. I think it's my party and I cry if
Oh,
I
that's
want.
Leslie Gore, and I'm
Ah,
going to
yes.
get to
Thank
her.
you. I get the two mixed up at times. You know.
Oh, I'm going to get to her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Then we mentioned Del Shannon before.
I think we did. Yeah. Del Shannon, who did his song "Runaway," who, as I mentioned last week, was a good primer to replace the late Roy Orbison in the Traveling Wilburys at one point.
Right.
But
He
sadly,
also did. He also did Handyman.
yeah, who
Keep
also
Searching.
who also came back in 1981 with an album called "Drop and Down and Get Me," which was produced by Tom Petty.
Yeah. He did The Stranger in Town.
Yeah,
Hats Off to Larry.
that's right. And of course, "Runaway" would later become the theme song for the short-lived Michael Mann drama series "Crime Story," around which came out at the same time Miami Vice was fully functioning. And it would
Yeah.
star a well-known actor we know who later appeared on the original Law and Order. Dennis Farina, I guess his last name is pronounced.
That sounds right, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was him. I remember him precisely there.
Okay, you mentioned Leslie Gore.
Yes.
It's My Party. Judy's Turn to Cry. Uh, can't read my own writing.
Oh wow.
Oh, and one really important song during that period of time because it's like a girl anthem, but it made a lot of sense was You Don't Own Me.
Ah, which was a kind of like a women's liberation anthem during that time, a period.
Yeah, and that was actually a pretty good song.
Because a lot of that time, women were often still considered second class to the men.
Yeah. Then she did one called She's a Fool.
Hmm.
Uh, That's the Way Boys Are. Maybe I Know. Look of Love. Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows, which was an incredibly short song. I think it
Hmm.
was only like a minute 30.
Yeah.
And California Nights, which she did that one in the original Batman with Adam West when she was playing one of the uh, Catwoman's kitty cats or whatever
Oh,
they were
really?
called.
That's something
Yeah.
there.
And
You got to get Eartha Kitt her due because that girl she did when she portrayed that role was still remains iconic to this day.
yeah,
Next to the other Catwoman, Lee Whitmer. What's her name? What's her name?
well, Lee Merriweather did it in the movie,
Hmm.
but the original Catwoman in that series was Julie
Julie
Newmar.
Newmar. That's right. I'm thinking the title, that one title that starred Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze as cross dressers, drag queens.
Yeah, the thing I liked about Julie Newmar is she had the physique that she resembled a cat. I mean, she
Hmm.
was tall, sleek, and just absolutely just slithered everywhere she went.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah. So she lived
she
up
made
to
a
that hype.
very good Catwoman because of that.
It's,
Actually, of the Catwoman, she's probably my favorite.
yeah, I know. I would say so as well because well, we Lee Mayweather also did a good job as well there.
Yeah, she did actually.
Hmm.
Then we go to the Four Seasons,
Oh yeah,
and we
Frank.
can start with Sherry,
Hmm.
Big Girls Don't Cry,
Yep.
Walk Like a Man. I'm gonna have to learn how to write better. Candy Girl.
And a couple others there, and they still continued on.
Stay, Don't Go Away,
Yeah,
Peanuts, Ragdoll, which actually was my favorite by them, and Silence is Golden,
that's
which a lot
right.
of other people did too.
And you got to
They,
give it up to Frankie and the boys because not only did they were able to move past the '60s and to do a couple other songs throughout '70s as well. Remember that song "Who Loves You" from I guess in
Right,
1975 or
right.
something like that. And of course, not forget Valley's one of his biggest solo hits, the song "Grease" for the movie of the same name, written by Barry
Right.
Gibb of the Bee Gees.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Then you
still.
had Big Man in Town,
Hmm.
a couple of Save It For Me, uh, Bye Bye Baby.
Uh huh.
Don't Think Twice. It's All Right. Which when they released it as The Wonder Who because he did that really high.
Yeah, yeah, because I think Valley would probably be credited as one of the best high-pitched male singers out there because of those earlier hits like Sherry and others, or Walk Like a
Yeah.
Man. Because back then it was not that big. It wasn't that. It was very rarely that male singers could reach a high pitch with their voices like that.
And stay in pitch
Hmm.
because that was the best part was he actually stayed in pitch when they did that. He didn't wander off.
Yeah, and up until so, if it's to say that possibly Frankie Valli was the original Rob Halford,
Yeah.
or the original Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, because those singers were able to stay in high pitch when they went up to that octave there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when Frankie Valli left, the Four Seasons, I don't know if they added another season or not, did a song called December 1983
Well,
that
what a
was
night!
reasonably big. Yeah,
Yeah, that
what a
was
night,
big. That
exactly.
was. I remember that came out in the 1970s as well. I remember hearing the original. In fact, there was this other version by an R&B group called Change. It's from an album they put out called Sharing Your Love. They did their version up there. And
Right.
I remember hearing it was pretty damn good, when you think about it.
Yeah. And then we moved into the Kingsmen because Louie Louie actually came out in 1962, I believe,
Yeah, and
or
that,
63.
and oh gosh, the shit that went down with this song is still talked about to this day.
Well, they actually launched an FBI
I
investigation into
remember,
that song.
yes, because they wanted to know it was actually explicit lyrics in that song, which
And
I,
then they determined that it was the song was fine. The guy was just drunk out of his mind when he
mhm.
sang it and slurred all his words and they were hard to understand.
Yeah, that is true there. And of course, that song's popularity would later be regenerized when it was featured in National Lampoon's Animal House. I remember seeing the clip on the old MTV, where the Kings were actually at this frat party. Everyone was dressed in all these tanga and all that shit, like the
Yeah.
movie, and they're performing Louie Louie, and everybody was just bouncing, singing along, going crazy, having a good old time there. It's like, damn.
Yeah, and when we get to our cover show, there's at least two covers I'm aware of
Hmm.
that, and I'm sure there's more.
I am. I think a lot of people did their versions, including Motorhead, for at one point.
Yeah, I remember the Kinks did a version of that song,
Yep.
and incredibly enough, Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Oh yeah. Which is another interesting group we got to get to because
Oh, we will.
because American rock and roll came out with their own Fab Four type of style of rock and roll as well.
Yeah, they also did a version of Little Latin Loopy Loo,
Wow.
which lots of groups did that one. They did a fun song called Jolly Green Giant.
Hmm.
You remember that one?
I think I remember hearing that some time ago, but I'm not too sure when there. So,
They did Killer Joe, The
When it,
Climb, and Money.
yeah. And it's kind of funny is that when I think of Jolly Green Giant, I think about the vegetable company. It's yo ho
Well,
ho.
that's what the song's about,
Oh
actually.
yeah, really?
Yeah.
So that
So,
figure's been around way before we were all born, I guess you could say there.
yeah.
Wow.
But that's an interesting song if you ever want to hear an interesting song.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not going to say it's a great song, but it's not a bad song.
That's right. I see. Yeah.
And then I've got Jimmy Rogers. Was it Jimmy Rogers?
Mm-hmm.
Did Honeycomb and Kisses Sweeter Than Wine, which were big.
That's right.
Then you got the Kingston Trio, which you mentioned some time
Oh
back.
yeah, I remember Tom Dooley, Bad Man's Blunder, and a couple others there. My dad had this one record from them called "Sing Along with the Kingston Trio."
Wonder if Greenback Dollar was on there.
I don't remember. I don't have the album with me, but it's been so long, man.
And that's
But,
an interesting song too,
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
because that was one that, depending on where it was played, there's a verse in there about he don't give a damn about a greenback dollar. But in some places, when they played it, they went ooh over the dam. So
yeah,
you hear it, I don't give a ooh about a greenback a dollar.
yeah. And by the way, to interrupt there, not famous in my chat says we should do a song about misinterpretations about song. He just learned about the meaning behind the Cranberries' "Zombie," which he have never known. Definitely, we got to look into that. That's probably one of our big,
Oh yeah,
absolutely, sometime, probably on a Monday or something like that, after our
yeah,
recap and preview there.
yeah. Because I know there's a lot of famous ones. The most famous one I remember is Purple Haze.
I know.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Yeah. It turns out it was "Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky" there. So,
Exactly. But a
but that's
lot
a
of
mis.
people misheard that.
I know. I was one of them.
Yeah, I kind of heard it and said, no, that can't be right.
I know. It's like a pretty odd. I figured the guy must have been zoned out on the drugs. That he probably would kiss anything in sight, including trees, lampposts, and everything.
And of course, one of the big folk groups that started this time was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yep.
They did songs like For Loving Me, which is a Gordon Lightfoot song,
Yes. And
or Early Morning Rain, which is a Gordon Lightfoot song.
Puff the Magic Dragon,
That was their biggie.
a kid's song there. And a lot of people misinterpreted that as in Puff Puff Get High, blah blah blah, and that kind of bullshit there.
Yeah, which you can kind of make that argument, but they always claimed that it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, they always say that all the time. But then again, I remember Jefferson Airplane when they got back together in '89. They had to do a lot of explaining. I kind of like they were in this. I know Grace Slick was in this apologetic mode whenever she spoke about White Lion. White Rabbit
White Rabbit,
back
yeah.
then. Yes, because she was like, oh, they were so stoned. They didn't really think that we were thinking at that time. You know, they were saying things like, oh, they were stoned. They wasn't really thinking about at that period when they wrote the song because at that time around the 80s, drugs like still considered it was still part of the Just Say No campaign that Nancy Reagan had started around that time there.
Yeah, but it it sounds like a lot of it's about Alice in Wonderland, which
Yeah, there was a lot of reference to that. One pill makes you small, one pig makes you tall. That's basically the whole
yeah,
idea. And you got to remember, a lot of Alice in Wonderland, the stories had a few Alice taking all this, taking all that. So there you go. Don't blame the airplane, blame the person who wrote Alice in Wonderland. There you go.
yeah, and actually they did other things like Too Much and Nothing. Um, I'm going to start writing in English. Leaving on a Jet Plane.
Oh yeah. Which
Uh,
which I guess Arlo Guthrie did his version of, if I'm correct. No,
no, that was John Denver.
okay, that's right. I
I
correct.
think John Denver actually wrote the song.
All right, there we go. And this is before John Denver became a household name himself, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was early. He did it
Very
real
early.
early.
Wow, very early. So the folk scene at that time, along with Bob Dylan, the Kingston Trio, the Smothers Brothers, that was really starting to kick in, I understand.
Yeah, and they also did I Dig Rock and Roll Music,
Mm-hmm.
which was interesting because there's a verse in the middle of that thing that I didn't really know he was speaking words till I listened to it closely, and that was the thing about uh, you don't, but I don't know exactly how I did it, but it was real hard to understand what he was saying. Then I
Oh wow.
realized, oh wait, he's singing.
Oh wow.
But that's an interesting song.
Oh, oh wow, man. That's a trip to listen to.
And then
Usually when we do
yeah,
that, when we make that noise,
well,
it's
he's
usually
saying words, but the way he's saying them, you don't realize it until you listen real close. But that's interesting because actually with the group I was in, we covered that song too.
oh yeah,
That's how I figured that one out.
yeah.
Uh,
Like I
and they
said,
did
like I said, when we usually hear when people say things, it's usually mocking someone who can't talk straight.
right. Yeah, and they did Dylan covers too.
Oh yeah.
For example, blowing in the wind.
Yes, I remember
They
that.
did Lemon Tree, which is I think a Trini Lopez song,
Yeah.
and then Telling on the Mountain. I don't remember who the original was on that one.
Who knows there? If it's, I should say this. This is when Bob Dylan really started. This is when he started before the Beatles, I understand, or after, I think.
Yeah, he started before the Beatles,
Okay.
and he was pure folk in the beginning.
Yes, I remember. I had his greatest hits album, and this is before he started using his backup band, who should later be known as the band here
Right,
afterwards. And of course, he
right.
would do "Blowing in the Wind," all those. I guess a couple other
It's
songs.
all over now, I believe. Well,
Yes,
we'll do a Dylan episode probably.
just like a woman there.
Yeah, we'll probably do a Dylan episode because there's enough there to do it. Then they also did Stew Ball,
Yes.
Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, Freight Train. I mean, they covered lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Puff the Magic Dragon,
Yeah.
500 Miles.
It's kind of. I think
Sorry, I'm having a hard
only
time
one.
reading my writing.
I remember understand. There's still. Are the members of Peter Paul Mary still around performing?
I honestly can't answer that question. I don't know.
Hmm. That's
I haven't. I would think that if any of them died, that we would know it. But then again, sometimes you don't find out until
later on.
later on. You look them up, and it's like, oh, when they die?
Okay, I'm
four
looking
years
at
ago?
one couple American band. A couple of them I remember. Yes. Let's say. Let's say according to this, Mary Travers died in Connecticut after battling leukemia in 2009. Um,
Well, actually, I remember that now.
yes. And I guess who's still living? I guess let me look it up here. Let's see. Paul Stuckey, he's still around, and of course Peter Yarrow, he's still around as well. It's just Mary Travers
Wow,
who is deceased.
wow.
Yeah,
But that was a group that I kind of liked to listen to when I felt mellow.
yeah, yeah.
They were fun to listen to.
and they had lots of albums as well. You should take it
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
oh yeah. They definitely did that.
It actually hasn't been bad. No,
Then you
no.
had
Drink a lot of cranberry or something.
actually, I think Woody Guthrie was dead by here.
I think so. Yeah, probably
And
the iconic Woody Guthrie.
yeah, I don't think Arlo hit till the '60s, mid '60s, late '60s,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll cover him when we get into the.
Arlo Guthrie, yes. When did the disciples of the Woody Guthrie the songwriting school there?
Yeah, of course, most people. Well, I take it back. Most people probably don't remember, but his really big thing was Alice's Restaurant
Who'd
Massacre.
oh man, we all knew that though. That's one of his most recognizable tunes. Every Thanksgiving Day, all the radio stations will be playing that song in the morning, afternoon, at night.
Yeah, that was kind of hard to play because it was like 18 minutes.
Yeah, it was, but and plus he would interpret a lot of funny stories along with it as well as how he's able to avoid the draft and stuff there.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a fun song to listen to if I was going to make a recommendation on Arlo Guthrie.
Yeah,
He had several others, but that's one that I would definitely make a recommendation for.
yeah. Obviously, when I was still, and I guess it's still played on. I guess classic rock stations often still play that track when it comes to on when it's on Thanksgiving Day because that since the whole story takes
Yeah,
place
because
on
it's about a
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving story.
Yeah,
You know, it's funny because I can't really think of many Thanksgiving songs, but that one is. I remember. Yeah, that one would qualify.
I know. I know. That's probably one of the most iconic. Because you're right. Other than that, I remember there was a couple of comic books, supporting USA for Africa, doing what was called a Thanksgiving gift. Sending checks and money orders to USA for Africa at the time when Feed the World was the main thing at that time. Let's feed
Yeah,
all these other, help feed all these other countries here. Well, that was one of the big things around that time.
yeah, I remember that. That's one of those. I guess in a sense a super group, but it wasn't really the true definition of a super group.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
not like Blind Faith or something like that.
yeah, yeah. That's true as well there. Or
Which actually,
later,
technically, Cream was a super group.
well, we already know Eric Clapton, and I guess Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce had some were a part of other group. I didn't really know about that story there.
Well, Jack Bruce at one time was a member of the Manfred Mann group,
Oh yeah,
the earlier one, and I don't remember for sure on Ginger Baker. Was he the one in Atomic Rooster? No, that was Carl Palmer, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that's correct. Yes,
Okay, I knew one of them was in Atomic Rooster.
yeah, that would be Carl Palmer from ELP, Emerson Lake and Palmer. But
Which I'm going to bet that about 90% of people that listen to this won't know who Atomic Rooster is.
I remember hearing the name ages back in the magazine. I'd be at to check out any of their music myself, to be exact.
Yeah, they had some good stuff. I think they had something like six. They're another one of those groups that were big in Britain, but never made it over here.
I
And there
know.
was a ton of those. And when we talk about the British invasion, we might cover one or two of those.
Absolutely, because there was so many to select from.
Yeah, because I know one group that comes to mind is Status Quo. They had a big hit here in America called Pictures of Matchstick Men, and then they disappeared. But they released something like 20 albums in Britain that were huge hits, and they were very popular in Britain.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember hearing about. I remember seeing performing this thing called on the VH1 Classic when it was still called that, called Rockin' All Over the World at the Download Festival, and people were just shouting along with the lyrics there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm wondering if that's kind of a show that we should think about is big groups elsewhere, but not so big here. Of
Definitely,
course, there
we
aren't
got
that
to
many of them.
we got to take a look at that sometime soon. Which probably
Yeah,
I'm thinking possibly on our when we do our recap and previews, we could discuss these ranges so that way they don't interfere with our series here of music memories here, where
right,
we would
right.
discuss between what's goes on in the 60s, 70s, and elsewhere. But I'm thinking possibly we could probably do that on
Yeah,
Mondays. That would be a better option for
yeah.
us.
Because if we don't do something on Mondays, that show's going to be way too short.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely we got our option spelled out right there, folks. We definitely next Monday we should probably talk about bands that have only had one hit song, but they were a lot more popular in the elsewhere.
Yeah, which actually doesn't. It might be the definition of a one-hit wonder here in America,
Yeah,
which actually that's a show I'd like to do because there were a lot of those.
I am. One
But
of the one of the biggest ones of all, "When a Man Loves a Woman" by the late Percy Sledge.
yeah, I don't think he really did anything else after
I
that.
know. It's like, what the heck? Did he release any other albums? Did he ever had other hits there? Just that one song? It's like, holy cow, dude.
Yeah, and especially considering that's a pretty good song. That's what really gets me is when it's a pretty good song and yet nothing.
I know. It's like,
Although there are other groups that had one big hit and followed up with 4 or 5 others that just bubbled around and didn't really do anything.
I know.
But we'll kind of talk about that in
One
the
of the
one hit
most,
wonder.
it's kind of most, the ironic, funniest of all one-hit wonders by band that's still carried on afterwards would have to be the Grateful Dead. You you remember
Yeah,
the
but
touch? Remember the song "Touch of Grey" from '87? That was a humongous hit on the charts there, and that was the only real big hit, other than the song "Trucking." And I don't know how high that track peaked around the year that it was released, but
well, I guess in a sense you'd have had to been a Deadhead because they did a lot of material and a lot of it was pretty good.
yeah, I wasn't really that much of a Deadhead on this, sadly, but I was more still in the I was in my own thing there. But when you look at it, the Dead still continue to tour and perform, release records here after, up until Jerry's death in '95.
Right. Yeah, well, like I said, they started in 1968 or 9, I forget which,
Oh,
and they released probably 40 albums.
I know.
And I'm reasonably familiar with them. And there will be a time that I'd kind of like to talk about them when we get into the underground,
Yes,
because they were
absolutely.
a big, 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 big part of the
Cult,
underground
one
prog.
of the biggest cult following bands out there, needless to
Yeah,
say. And they still attract legions of fans to this day, even though it's now called Dead and Company, because it couldn't continue as the Grateful Dead after Jerry's death. So,
yeah. But I was a fan of the Grateful Dead. I wasn't a Deadhead, but I liked a lot of their stuff. I mean, when we get there, I'm going to kind of touch on songs. Say, you need to hear this. You need to hear this, because they were another one of those groups that dabbled in all sorts of things. They actually have an album that sounds country,
hmm
called "Working Man's Dead."
uh
About half
huh.
the songs on it, they're
Oh,
using steel guitars and stuff like that, and you're going,
Lap Steel.
yeah, you're going, is this a country band? But it's not.
It's the Grateful Dead. They experimented a little bit there.
Oh, and that was the thing that was cool about them. They tried stuff. They're largely known as a jam band
Yeah,
for the most part, because they improvised and they played long songs.
that's true. Yeah.
But
And that of course that would inspire all the other jam bands in the 1990s, like the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler.
right, yeah, because jam bands got to be a pretty big thing for a while. There were a lot of them. In a
I know.
sense, all the Allman Brothers were kind of a jam band.
Mm.
I'm one of those people that I don't know if you've ever heard it, but on the Eat a Peach album is a song called uh, "There Is a Mountain." That's about a 35-minute jam session,
Oh wow.
instrumental, and you get to hear Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman just go.
Yep, that's true there.
So, and we'll spend some time on the Allman Brothers too.
Yeah, we got said that when we covered the '70s rock scene there. It's kind of funny, and we're kind of like a lot of these artists, like Fabian, are no longer around. I understand. They're no longer
Right.
functioning. Either they have passed on, or they just were left the music scene and doing other or still continue to do shows at either Vegas or cabaret shows and stuff like that. But I know Dion is still in functioning. I know he released a couple comeback albums. I guess in the '80s or early '90s, from what I understand there.
Yeah. It's ironic because he did a lot of things in the early '60s,
Yeah,
but his biggest hit was probably that Abraham Martin and John.
yeah. It's kind of fun. Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. Like when you read, even though some of these acts that we have spoke of had some good hits there. What do you say to the people out there that who I mentioned who said that some of these rock acts didn't have no damn backbone, they didn't have no thrust into their music, like Valence, Holly, Bill Haley, and all the others before them. What would you say to those people? Because there were a lot of these songs from them that you did appreciate them.
Yeah, in the early '50s, a lot of those songs you could appreciate and they were good.
Yeah.
It's when you got into that little period of time in the early 60s before the Beatles came that was kind of like, there's not a lot here. Oh, another song I forgot to mention because it was actually pretty big and I kind of liked it
Yes.
was Jimmy Gilmer did one called Sugar Shack,
Oh. Now I've heard
which,
that I've heard that name many times before. It could be referred to a some sort of a nightclub or underground club there. I
yeah,
know it.
supposedly it was a coffee house.
Oh yeah.
But I, if you get a chance, you need to look that up, play it because it's kind of a nice little tune to listen to.
Yes.
Uh, Nancy Sinatra also did a song called Sugar Shack, but it was a
Oh.
totally different song.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, there is a rule here. You could have two songs with the same title. Let that be known there.
Yeah, it's not like you got to mark it on the title.
Yeah,
Yeah, other groups will use it.
exactly.
And you might think, oh, that's their version of the song. And a lot of times you listen to it, it's like,
No, it
that's
is
not the
not.
same
I
song.
thought I thought the same thing when the band Incubus had a song called "Wish You Were Here." I thought it was the Pink Floyd cover, but it was like totally something different, just the same title.
Yeah, and Alice Cooper actually had a song called Wish You Were Here that was totally different.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like you said, it's you don't have a market on the title. It's maybe the song, but not the title.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's unless you kind of misspelled the words a little bit there. I know a band
Yeah,
called Slade,
absolutely.
and there was this glam rock band out of England called Slade that did that with a lot of their titles.
Yeah, the Mama, we're all crazy now. It's spelled crazy A-Z-Z-Z
And of
or
course,
C-R-A-Z-E-E.
we cannot forget, "Come On Feel the Noise," which quite right made took to number one in '83.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's one of the things, and a little bit of a future show
yeah.
that will be interesting is I want to do good covers of songs from the 60s and before, and then another one of bad covers from
Uh,
the songs of the 60s and before.
yeah, we
'Cause
got
I
to
think
look
we
into
can
that,
cover
man.
both of those pretty good.
Then we got to look into that kind of stuff there because I remember hearing some bad covers of songs that we have known for a long time ago.
Yeah,
What
well,
about
one that
this?
comes to mind for me is I loved Behind Blue Eyes by The Who,
Yeah.
but I heard the Limp Bizkit version. I
Oh
go, what
God,
the heck is this?
that was an atrocity its own self. First of all, they forgot the whatever happened. They forgot the bridge there where the with my fist clenches, crack it open, and they forgot that part. Why did
Yeah,
they
they just
do
did the
that?
yeah they just did the
The
beginning and end and
yeah.
skipped the middle.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck were those idiots thinking? That to me was one of the most atrocious things ever to do to a classic song, right there, man.
Well, we'll need to mention that when we get to bad covers.
I know we have definitely. That's already on my list. So that's on my top spot right there, man.
Yeah, I don't think it gets much worse.
Oh God,
Well,
if
I'm
I
sure it does, but we just hadn't discovered it yet.
I know if Keith Moon was still around, he'd be bashing his drum kick over Fred Durst's head and the rest of those guys.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like I said. That's among the things I want to talk about later
Yes.
is good covers and bad covers, and I also want to cover one-hit wonders,
Yeah.
and I'd like to cover novelty songs because that could be fun.
Oh yeah. I say we do all this on the upcoming Monday episodes after our preview and recap of what went on our shows and with this YouTube community as well. There.
Yeah, that'll give us something other than just talking about, oh,
Well,
this is what we did, this is what we're going to do,
yeah.
because that's about a 5 minute spiel.
I know. So we could also cover the bullshit that goes on at this show or that show. We could talk about that and definitely talk about the subjects we discussed a moment ago. One hit wonders to atrocious cover tunes.
Yeah, and good ones, because there are some good ones out
Yeah, that's
there.
true. I remember this one called. You remember the song "Don't Make Me Over"?
Doesn't sound familiar.
I think it may have. Let's see. Don't make me over. I think wasn't that a 1960s song? Let me look it up here, because I'm thinking possibly. Let's see. Because I remember there was this song I remember hearing at the place called the Shelter in downtown Detroit. Don't Make Me Over song. Yes. Um, it was a song originally done by Dionne Warwick. It was
Mm.
later covered by the singer named Sybil. I remember hearing the Sybil version there. Came out in 1963. And of course, there was other recordings of this song by the cast of Glee in 2009, Jennifer
Oh,
Warnes from 1979, um, Julia Julia Holter in 2004. For 2014, I meant to say. Let me see here. Come on, come on. How much is son? How much is? Of course, the Sybil version that I mentioned the moments ago. Right. A little mess up here on my thing there. One of these plugs here that need to be checked here. One of my USB cables, I think, and there we go. All right, so this is probably the sum up. The music scene at that time was at a standstill.
and it was starting to blow up big time.
Yes, it would blow up a big time with the Beatles arriving in America to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show. We've been
And
hearing
right
about,
behind them, dozens of British groups.
yes, like the Yardbirds, the Rolling Stones, the Kings, all Hermits, all
The
those
Who.
acts, the Who, yes, you know. It fits to say that the British helped us out along the way, because at that time we were still because as you know what happened in Dallas in November of 1963, that was one of the big disappointments of that period there.
Oh yeah,
It's still probably one of the most talked about moments, because to this day there's still speculation that Lee Harvey Oswald, my bad there, didn't actually pull the trigger, but it was basically possibly a government conspiracy or Cuban's conspiracy or something like that.
yeah. I was a junior in high school. I was in junior high school when that happened.
Wow, I wasn't even born at the time. I learned about it on the TV and a history class at school there a few times there, and I remember one time CBS, the network there, they broadcasted the entire program of Walter Cronkite, you know, rebroadcasting the entire news footage of what happened on that fatal day there.
Yeah, but that a lot of the music at that time started, like I said, exploding because you had, excuse me,
You know,
the British, and then you had America's Answer, then you had some of the bigger folk ones.
yeah.
Yeah,
You okay there?
yeah. I was just, for some reason I had the hiccups,
Oh,
and then on Thursday we're going to start with the Beatles and probably only be able to cover up to Sergeant Pepper, I'm thinking.
oh yeah.
But who knows? We'll just start and see how far it goes.
And definitely, we got to. So I'm looking forward to doing this because, damn, it was. I could tell you a lot of memories involving the Beatles growing up. I can tell you that.
Yeah. And what, as far as the music goes, what I'm thinking we cover is their American albums, because at that time, the American version of the album and the British version of the album were usually different.
Hey, were. You know what?
And
I gotta suggest this, and this is a direct message to Capitol Records. Start reissuing the U.S. versions of these albums. I mean, what about you've been
well, actually, I think they did.
well, they did for a box. It was around 2005 for a box set. I remember that. But they need to
Yeah.
reissue them all as a complete. I mean, they could, as far as I'm concerned, they could put back yesterday and today with the original Butcher Baby cover,
Yeah.
and they could also
Yeah.
release the U.S. version of the movie Help, along with the
Right.
original instrumental scores on it, because the scores on that album are pretty damn good as well. I enjoyed listening to those. They could
Well,
put
actually, I think they did that with Hard Day's Night, too.
Yeah, Yeah, they could put out not really. Yes, they did. That's right. And by the way, they should also release that album out as well. They could release all
Yeah,
the little things like the early Beatles or the Beatles stories, as well as also the Beatles 65. You know, the Beatles second album. They need to reissue those albums. You know, for to
right,
give a glimpse of the people today, because all we have is the UK versions, and but much as good as they are, the UK versions don't really come close to the U.S. versions. I mean, like when you think about it, oh, the Beatles are because the people need to know about particularly the instrumental scores on Hard Day's Night and the Help albums there, the
right,
U.S.
right.
versions. They need to
Yeah.
be aware of that.
Well, we'll cover all that in our Beatles show.
Yeah, absolutely. Which will be this Thursday, I understand, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I'm looking forward to do that because man, I have a lot of memories in store when I first heard the Beatles when I was about 11 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Looking forward
it's
to doing that. All right, Sarah. So, do we have anything else left to cover here for this time moment here?
not really. There wasn't a lot to cover.
I know, yeah, because
I mean,
it was not that good of a period when it came to heavy hitting rock and roll. That's for sure. We had to deal with all these, soft rock kind of stuff, as they would put it.
well, the Beatles kind of kicked open the door for tons of people.
Absolutely, yeah. So we got to acknowledge them for that as well, which we will do this coming Thursday night.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think that's pretty much it for it right now.
Yeah, tomorrow night we're going to do our third run
It's
at Star Trek, the original series,
yeah, part three.
and cover mainly the third season because we've already covered the first two.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And how many seasons were of Star Trek? Was it about three or
Three.
four? Okay, so this will be the.
This will be the last Star Trek, the original series.
Okay, I see there. All right.
And then Friday we'll do the Godzilla franchise.
Absolutely, that's for sure as well. All right.
So it should be a fun week. Everybody tune in. And remember that Thursday we start at 5, not 6.
Yep.
And every
Because of
other
my
night we'll.
because of my stint with Minnesota Vikings fan.
And we're going to try to start at 6 each night. And if we don't, it won't be much after that.
All right. All right. All right. So and also want to say a little. Do you want to say a little thing about the passing of Eddie Van Halen, the guitar legend?
Oh, wow. That, well, in a sense, it's kind of brutal, but it happens to everybody. But oh gosh, you hate to see it.
Yeah, no, I was like, I recorded a little stint with the YR, my old Metal Maniacs co-host there. Him and his couple of his friends, Old Man Davey and Keith Rabarber. We were on the call discussing our memories of Van Halen, how he influenced the guitar and everything
Oh yeah,
else. And also, I said this before, fuck you, cancer. You took too many people from us, friends, relatives, musicians, actors, and everybody else.
yeah,
I know. I think we all agree that the big C can go suck a big one.
yeah, absolutely.
I know.
But anyways, we hope to see everybody the rest of the week.
Okay.
And for the TV shows and the movies, give us some ideas in the comments. Although we got a pretty good bunch of ideas ourselves, but
Or Betty,
it would help to know.
no, Bill, sorry to interrupt. But Betty, you could give us ideas in our Skype if you want to, or on our Twitter
Right,
handles.
right. Just say, hey, I'd like to hear something about this. And on the movie one, we're basically looking at movies that were, in a sense, bad, but you couldn't turn away from them because they were interesting. A lot of the 50s and 60s sci-fi shows fall into that.
That's true there. All right. So, that'll be it for today. This is Arknolia and the Doctor, episode 8 of our music memories here. And you guys have a good one, and we will see you tomorrow night at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where we take a look at the original Star Trek series here. All right?
All right, sounds good. We'll see everybody later.
All right. You guys have a good one. For Arknolia and myself, this is Arknolia and the Doctor.